And CBS 4 News following a developing story tonight, a night of civil disobedience in Miami. Protesters take to the streets, at one point even getting on to I-95. Good evening. As a result of this new unrest, Miami-Dade County's curfew was moved up 2 hours from midnight to 10 p.m. At different times, the protest shut down large parts of I-95, the Julia Tuttle Causeway, and Biscayne Boulevard. CBS 4's Ty Russell is live in Miami tonight with more. Ty.
And within the last few minutes, the city of Miami Mayor Francis Suarez tweeted out that today's protest was peaceful, and he says that Miami continues to be an example for the rest of the country. Now, it is a little quiet here in Wynwood. That's because there is a curfew. Not many people are out on the streets. And I'm right here next to I-95 because protesters were able to knock a portion of the fence down here and make it onto the interstate. There were no major clashes between the protesters and officers, but officers were able to move those protesters off and then reopen the interstate. Protesters in Miami chanted the name of a black woman who would have turned 27 Friday. She was shot and killed 2 months ago in Kentucky when officers say they were attempting a drug sting. Drivers honked their horns in support of the group. They marched in Miami's Wynwood and Midtown neighborhoods. Protesters held signs calling for an end to systemic racism and the wrongful deaths of black men and women. They're mostly putting the pressure on law enforcement agencies to change policies and have better relations with the black community. There is also a push to lower funding for police departments and sheriff's offices. Protesters were blocked by police from getting on I-195, the Julia Tuttle Causeway that leads from Miami to Miami Beach. Chopper 4 was also above to see the crowd on one of the ramps. Protesters then policed themselves by turning each other around and heading in a new direction. But once the main march was back in Wynwood and over, some protesters knocked down a fence to get onto I-95. A traffic camera showed the crowd. Troopers then moved the protesters from the interstate. They were also forced to shut down I-95 in both directions Friday night. Shortly after, the county's mayor moved up curfew to 10 p.m. until further notice. Protesters in Broward marched Friday. Along 441 in Davie, they even lied down at an intersection with their hands behind their back and chanted.
Lord, we pray, Lord, for peace. We pray for justice. We pray, oh God, for unity. We pray for love.
Churches and other groups held rallies calling for real solutions. Khadijah Hill was seen in a viral video posted on BSO's Twitter this week praying with the deputy. She says prayer is powerful and it's needed for change and unity.
Everybody was like, oh my gosh, you're praying with the enemy. And it's like, no, like he's not the enemy. Like the enemy is what's going on in the world, the injustice, people burning down buildings, people are stealing. Like that's the enemy.
Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Jimenez believes the protests and rallies will lead to change.
What we're going through right now will make us better as a county, better as a state, better as a country.
But until protesters see those changes throughout the country,
and it's a show of solidarity with the rest of the protest,
they plan to continue marching through the streets, especially this weekend. Yeah, protesters are not done getting their voices heard and their messages seen. We are expecting a group to gather tomorrow afternoon around 4 o'clock in downtown Miami. But for now, we are live in Wynwood. I'm Ty Russell, CBS 4 News Tonight.